and welcome to the Green Tent Circle, where you're going to have the most marvelous experience, starting with my dear friend Gail up in Canada with her eagle white feather. We'll do the opening ceremony for us to open our sacred circle. And then I get to introduce my dear friend, Jean Shinoda Bolen, who all of you most likely know and have read one of her, at least maybe all 13 books like me. And she will talk the message that is being, Spirit is asking her to give to us today. And then we will follow with questions and reflections. The Green Tent Circle is a website, has all kinds of resources. You'll find out much about Jean. She has her own website where you can see all of her books and where she's going to be speaking next and etc. But the Green Tent Circle is really about, you can have a circle anywhere and everywhere, but it's about gathering in a sacred circle where we care for one another and we care for Mother Earth. And so it's like coming together, being nurtured so we can nurture Mother Earth. And we want Green Tent Circles all over the world. And since it first started in Italy and in Brazil and in Canada and in the US, and we know in Latin America, Central America, it is beginning to spread. And all of you can help make that happen. So I will mute myself as Gail, introduce yourself and lead us in this wonderful ceremony that you're going to give us.
Thank you, Anne. And I thank you all for welcoming me into your arms in the circle. It's been an amazing experience. I've only been here a few times and I'm already in love with you all. My name is Gail Rasmus. Ashluk is Greenlandic, it's my spirit name, which means black bear. The reason I have a Greenlandic name is because I have been initiated under the traditions of Greenland by Anganga, elder and shaman of Greenland. And I am working with him and the Greenlandic grandmothers, forming the Greenlandic Grandmothers Council to help reinstate the matriarch society across Greenland. And Anne is helping us to get our voice out to the world through the Parliament of World Religions and through United Nations. And we're just sort of working on how we can do that. So the grandmothers are quite excited about that. So the ceremony, and as far as my background, as far as yes, I am Indigenous from various nations, so across Europe and here in Canada, and pagan from Europe. So I cover all the races within my own body. So I know the challenges because I have them within me. So the ceremony I was going to do today, it started out to be a water ceremony. And so the water I have here with me is from Ephesus, Turkey. Now, I was told that it was the place of the Virgin Mary, and this well is at the house of Virgin Mary. And whether it is or isn't her last place, irregardless, millions of people have been going to this well and leaving their prayers and blessings. So this water that I have has prayers and blessings for thousands of years. And I'm going to share this with you today and pour some into my little seashell dish. Bringing in the four elements, the first element I'm bringing in is the sacred water. The second element I have here is the sacred fire. And this is a world peace candle that's began its journey in Jerusalem in 1999 and has traveled around the world, and it has been lit and flames lit from this candle for millions and millions and millions of people. And the whole purpose of it is the living flame of hope for peace, so that it have the element fire. So for the element earth, I have sage, tobacco, and a sacred stone from the grandfathers. So I will light the sage and the tobacco from the sacred candle. And I add the element air from the white eagle feather. So I'm going to do a blessing ceremony. I did this last week and Anne suggested that I should do it again today. And this blessing ceremony originated with Grandmother Key the Ojibwe elder from Garden Island, Michigan. And she insists that we share this around the world with everyone. So I have her permission to share this with you, this blessing ceremony from the 7 directions. So I begin by calling in, and I will start with the east so that we know where the sun rises in your community or your home. So you know which face to visualize or to face that direction. So I bring in the energy of the east, and I call on the ancestors of the east to come and bless this ceremony. I call on the energies of the south and the ancestors of the south to come, the energies of the west to come and bless this ceremony. I call on the energies of the north and the ancestors of the north to come and bless this ceremony. I call on the energies of the Creator, of God, to come and bless this ceremony. I call in the energies of Mother Earth to come and bless this ceremony. I call on the energies within us to hold this blessings and this ceremony within our heart. So now I light this candle and the sage, and I bring this blessing stone and I hold it to your forehead, and I ask, may your mind think with clarity. I bring this sacred fire to your heart, and I ask, may your heart beat with bravery and courage. I bring this sacred flame to your feet, and I touch Mother Earth, and I ask, may you walk upon her in a good way. I bring this flame to your hands, and I ask, may your hands continue to do good work. Balance and blessings, blessings and balance. Ho ho. Kuinak. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. And now it's my great pleasure to turn this over to Jean, who I've known since the beginning, 2000. And we have a great story of when we met, because somebody said, Anne, this woman wrote your book on Circle. So I went and got the Millionth Circle book, and I said, not only did she write it, she wrote it much better than I could. So I called her up because I'm in San Francisco doing a conference, and I left it on her answering machine. She calls me back. I'm in this hotel, and it has one that has, I'm in the bathtub. And so she calls me back, and it's in the morning, and I didn't want to tell her I was in the bathtub. I'm talking to this famous, wonderful, internationally known woman. So I am trying not to let the water. And we started talking, and the water was getting very cold. And I never told her until years later. So anyway, Jean Bolen is known and loved around the world. She has changed so many people's lives, especially women. I've traveled with her, and people will come running up, Jean, you totally have changed my life. She's a distinguished life fellow for the American Psychiatry Association. She is the most wonderful optimist. And she perseveres, and she loves you wholeheartedly, as she loves the world, as she loves all women and all people. So I could go on and on and on, but she has this website, and I don't want to keep talking because I want you to hear from my wonderful friend, Jean.
I use my Tibetan bell. It's not a bell, it's a bowl, actually. And depending on how I strike it, I may hit it several times until it's got just to the right tone or some such thing. But what it does is it takes me and it takes us out of our head, and the Tibetan bowl sound vibrates with the heart chakra. And it is the heart chakra connected to the rest of us, but the heart chakra is the central part of the compass in us that knows what direction we should follow. We follow our heart. And that doesn't mean that we abandon our mind and our body and our knowledge and all, but there's something special about the heart being the center to inform us to also keep growing. One of the things about the sense about the heart chakra is that as you grow older, you get an increasing feeling that the body is inside of the energy field of the heart. And one gets to be, I guess, somewhat wiser as we get older, but mostly we get a sense of love and forgiveness and something about choosing what do we do with our energies, because I know that for me, as well as for some of you, I don't have as much energy as I used to have when I was younger. I sleep longer. And so what do I do with the time and the energy and the feelings and the thoughts that I have? It comes from inside out, really, as to where it goes. And I was thinking that today I wanted to keep introducing to people in general the magical word for me called liminal. Liminal seems like a very strange word. It's actually a Latin word for threshold. It is a threshold that we cross. It's used in a standard description of a house. It's that you step over the threshold and you go from outside inside. But liminal threshold may be a long passage. People go into a depression and they go down and down and down. And then as they start to go up, there's a potential of getting out of the depression and crossing over back into life again. So liminal for me has a great deal of significance right now, because we as the planet, as members of the planet, we don't rule the planet, we think we do, but we're just one of the many creatures, small, insignificant in terms of mountains and oceans and things like that. But here we are, people who within patriarchy assumed that we ruled, that we were in charge of this planet, when of course we're not. And so here we are in this place that is itself liminal. Once the pandemic began, I mean, I had been in Egypt for a conference with my daughter Melody and introducing her to that particular world that was led by the people who are doing conferences all over the world to bring us closer to each other. And so I come back in March and I begin my office practice for one day, and then everything gets shut down. The pandemic is officially begun. And at least in California, it's like shut down. Everything suddenly becomes very different. Everybody has to become more introverted. You can't just go out and sit around a table in a club or something. Everything was shut down. People had to be with themselves and with their people they live with. And it has been going on. In my particular county, for example, I still wear a mask when I go down to go shopping at the grocery store. Since March of 2020 till now, we have been in what I would consider the word liminal. We are in between. what was. You know, when you step over a threshold, you can't go back. You are on your way through to whatever is next. And as long as you're on that threshold, you don't know yet what you will step through when you go through that door into that next space. And then you are committed to where you are there. So we are in a liminal time. And I wanted people to think about the liminal times that they have personally been in. Because we all have had many, many liminal experiences, but they've been individual. For example, I remember when I was a child and my family moved. Then I was the new kid during World War II, when the Japanese in California, we got out of the state. Otherwise, we would have been in a relocation camp because we were of Japanese ancestry. My grandparents came over on both sides of my family to the United States. And if you were outside of California, Oregon, and Washington, you were free American citizens again. It really was a strange time. You know, the Japanese bombed Hawaii, which was predominantly Japanese American, but you couldn't put them in concentration camps at all. But in California, area by area, if you were of Japanese ancestry, it didn't matter that you were an American citizen. And you had a certain amount of time to pack up and show up where you would be bused. In my part of the world, the Japanese Americans were bused to the stables at Santa Anita Racetrack, where they were converted temporarily to house people who could take a suitcase, just one suitcase a person, to there. Well, I managed to, thanks to my parents, who were in their own way activists. My mother was a physician, my father was a businessman. They had the sense that of this coming, and they knew that if they got out of the LA County boundaries to another part of California, they could try to maneuver themselves and us out of the state, which they managed. We were in Central California for a while. My father went to Sacramento. We got papers that made a connection with people in New York that said that they would take care of us if we left the state. So we had these proper papers. We went back to Los Angeles to the railroad station with these papers that would keep us safe. Nobody asked for them. Once we were on board, they probably assumed we were Chinese or who knows what, but nobody questioned that we were somehow these aliens, apparently, because Japanese Americans were considered at this point aliens, even if you were American citizens. And then we leave and we are free Americans again. Now, I happened to only be in kindergarten when this happened. And when, for those war years, as my activist parents were involved in helping getting relatives on my father's side who were in California out of the we call concentration camps, they call them relocation camps. So I went to many different schools in the first grade and up until the beginning of the second grade. And it would be the third grade before I came back to California. But one of the different things about doing such things as you enter a different world after different world after different world, and many of you may have had that same experience. Some kids live in the same neighborhood, go to the same schools all throughout. Others, especially during war years where fathers are enlisted in the armed services or something, the kids get moved and they're in new places, and in each new place, there's a whole different experience as a child of venturing into crossing a boundary and wondering if you are going to be acceptable or not acceptable. And this has happened over and over again. So it is a kind of when it happened to you at any stage of your life, including when you went off to college, you left behind that identity that you had if you went to college away from home. And then you had to enter a new world. each time, over and over again, each individual person has gone through what the use of the word liminal. You went through, you left where you were known and you couldn't go back, because after all, you're older than you were. Now you're in a different world. And what are you going to do? How are you going to do this liminal phase? Who will you become? Who will you meet? Who will you have as friends? Who will pick on you? Who will vote you out? Who will, the whole thing over and over again. That which I use the word liminal has applied individually to every single person. Every time they move to a different school, every time they move to a different neighborhood, there was, you can't go back to where you were. Okay, now what? And so all of us have, in one way or another, understood the word liminal once we got introduced to the word liminal, when we're in between who we used to be and how we are going to be in this new place that we are in. But now with the pandemic, it's happening to everybody in our country anyway, and in most parts of the world. You can't go back to where it was peaceful and you didn't have to worry about certain things. And we are now in this time of pseudo pandemic, at least in the United States, with the vaccines and everything. There is a sense that, well, it's not all that safe, but it doesn't feel quite like stay away, but things have changed a lot. And then thank goodness for things like Zoom. Thank goodness for things like FaceTime. We actually are able to gather together often now on screen, which we could not have done if this pandemic had begun 2 years before, for example. So here we are, spending a lot of time either by ourselves or with the family that we either are getting along better and deeper with, or there is a lot of tension going on. And in fact, for many people, as this pandemic continues, there's a sense of depression. And of course, we are also facing an election, and that has a whole other sense of meaning for us. What do we do with the energy and the perseverance that we might have? What are we here to do? I mean, this is the big question of being in this particular pandemic that affects everyone. What will we do? What matters to us? And there's so much focus on individual difficulties, which of course comes up for each individual. But there's a sense of maybe in the next decade, we will know whether humanity is going to survive or not on this planet, because humanity has nuclear weapons within its reach. Oh. And we are, at the moment, there is this tension between men in power who have the power to assert nuclear weapons use. The tension between Russia and the United States and Europe, Western Europe, is very real. And yet we are all so focused on our upcoming election because it truly does matter. It has been an awareness that within the United States, there has been a issue between circle and hierarchy. It has to do with the whole thing about, in the usual way of hierarchy, which, if you remember European history, you might remember like the French Revolution. It used to be like at the top of the hierarchy was the king and the queen. Well, it dissolved the top, but it kept on. The patriarchy has kept on. And wherever there is patriarchy, whoever the person is, and it's up to recently been male, the male at the top has everybody facing him. He is the person in power. He is the person who leads everybody. In many parts of the world, it's only the men who get to vote. Well, in the United States, women got the right to vote, but the patriarchal world continued until it started to break down. And it started to break down not very long ago. the decade of the 70s was called the decade of women. And for the first time, there was a lot of good women activists who made an issue of equality. And it opened the doors to education. It pretty soon became possible, except for religions that only allowed men to be priests. A woman could enter any specialty after the 70s that they couldn't do before. So, but you had to go get a lot of education. You had to have a lot of experience and sort of went underground. Also, it so happened that while the women activists were very much involved in bringing about equality, a lot of women did not buy into that, but were able to step through doors to get education and prestige and what have you. And so we see it now. We see now how many women are running for office, how many women are physicians, how many women are lawyers. This is really a major change beginning back in the 70s. And so here we are now facing an election where the men who don't get it, or maybe it's that they do get it, and the first thing they wanted to do was to take the right of choosing to be a mother away from women. Amazing that after about 60 or 70 years of having the reproductive rights as women, suddenly women now get pregnant, and if they're in a state and don't have what it takes to get out of the state, to get the unwanted, it could have been caused by rape, it could have been caused by incest, whatever it was caused by. If that woman, who might only be 12 or could be much older, what is she to do? She is supposed to bear children. And that issue is now as up again, so here we are in the middle of people who have wanted power over the patriarchy, which happens to be, the Republican Party has changed a lot. Once upon a time, when I first began voting, I was a Republican because my parents were. But boy, have I ever shifted over, because it no longer resembles anything that there used to be quite principled people who were Republicans. And now it's male people who want power over and want to put women back in their place. So here we are, still here. Most of us have had experiences as activists of some sort or another. And Anne introduced me as an optimist, which I am. I mean, I'm an energetic activist optimist. I'm also, if you do astrology, you have your basic sign is what you basically are. And then you have a rising sign, which is that persona that you go into the world that shows. Well, one thing about being in a pandemic and being delighted to be able to be so introverted, because I am a Cancerian, which is the most introvert, one of the most introverted symbols in astrology, but I have one of the most extroverted personas in that astrological chart. So I can do that, but I can also just be quite introverted. And in the introverted place, it is possible to really think deeply and feel. And, that's really why I have so many books in print, is because there I go and I learn and I get information and things like that. And there is a sense of how do you find out what gives you energy to be who you are. I mean, this is one of the things that is most likely to happen, either because you ran into difficulties in childhood and you had to sort of survive whatever you were put through, or you had a straightforward, supported childhood into college and you went into standard marriage and children, and you cannot get through life without having difficulties. But lots of people have lots of difficulties and lots of other people do not necessarily. So it really isn't until, for women, it really isn't until about postmenopausal and after that, that you can become a true wise activist person. There's something about this current situation that it really does take women who have been through the stages of life and are living longer these days. And one of the things I found interesting is that for women who had a briefer life, a lot of my contemporaries exited somewhere in their 60s often. It's as if the energy for sustaining life did not continue beyond the life they had. And in general, they were in a kind of life that was apparently not meaningful, and whatever it was in their body that could overcame them. So I'm thinking about the connection between younger women who get a sense of meaning as activists in life right now, who are not ready right now, unless they already have children, to take care of the kids and make sure that the kids manage to get through this period. And here we all are in our major times in our lives. And I'm just suggesting that if you don't have a family to raise at this time, hold on and wait until they do well, you and your kids and your family, and then consider that the time goes by fast. And in a decade or 2 decades, wherever you are, if you still are of childbearing age, it'll be quite different. You can be as, I don't remember the word one of you used about activism, but anyway, that kind of sense of older women who can be outrageous, who can put their words where they're right in the situation, who can speak with some kind of interior authority, and yet have to choose what to do with the time they have left. You know, this is one of the things that happens now. We don't have all the time left. One of the things that is so amazing is to think about how fast the last 2 decades went, for example. So I'm thinking about the fact that we who are tuning into this particular program, some of us who are clearly older than some of you who are younger, we have this time to make a difference. And that kind of energy keeps vitality growing, keeps heart growing. And the issue is really to grow out of the patriarchal power over, where everybody faces the leader and says, yes, sir, so much. I mean, that's a caricature, versus the circle, in which there is within the circle an image of that it is sacred. Basically, it goes back to the indigenous models of or Girl Scout camp. It's the same sort of thing where you sit around, in which everybody faces inward, and there is a fire in the center. There's a source of light and warmth in the center. Well, if you take that fire that is warmth and light, and you think of it as really a symbol of the sacred, a symbol of divinity, the sacred of the sacred feminine, the sacred masculine, the sacred presence that only the heart recognizes, but the heart does recognize. And so to sit in a circle of mostly women, because women have been doing this more naturally, but there are circles of men, and there are also circles of men and women, in which everybody faces each other, and there becomes a sense that what you say within that circle, if it is personal and private, it is kept sacred and personal. That basically speaking, this is where your soul can grow, your spirit can grow, which is not always true for who you are in the outer world. Most families expected you when you were younger, and as you get older, to be that person that the family expected you to be. And so it's hard to decide that you're going to do something new, that you're going to try a creative mode or a political mode, or you're going to do something that isn't really understood by the people who you live with. But if you live within a circle of energy that supports you to consider it, to go inward, and to get the energy and the means to say, this is important to me, and I still have years left maybe where I can do this and become, as I say about individuation, to become who you were meant to be. At different phases of our lives, we were meant to be the way we were or not. But if we're still here, we still have what next being, are we going to live that part that is who we were meant to be? And might we, in fact, many of us who are activists, have some sense of having previous lives even? Because one of the things you get a sense of is that there are old souls or wiser souls, and they're young souls. And we can't remember if we ever had previous lives. Most people can't. But suppose that those of us who are still around and are activists making a difference, what if this is what we came for? What if we had to erase why we came, but here we are? And if we're still here and the world is in such jeopardy and there are so many people in trouble, what are we going to do with our one wild and precious life now? So that, on that note, I end my, whatever you call this. And,
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jean, for just being you, for your 13 books, for all that you have given the world. And it's a lot of wisdom besides
Right.
practical ways of organizing, which of course is in a circle. And so let's just give Jean, a standing ovation, even though we're sitting, but just.
thank you.
Yes. And we do have some time for some quick questions for Jean, or just reflections. But again, thank you, Jean.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
I'm Annalie Hedges, a Dominican sister who lives now in Michigan, but really for years and years worked with many of you at the United Nations. And I want to offer a thanks, and I hear from you, I'm in touch with my United Nations friends that there's huge conversation going on with Putin at the United Nations, and they are holding him back from starting a nuclear war. Pardon me, he's enough to do it.
Yes.
And his colleagues there won't let him do it. And so big thanks to the United Nations that they exist, because we couldn't invent it if they didn't already exist. But they're really on top of it with the Russian ambassador and all of them.
Thank you.
May it be so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, Jean, because sometimes with aging, we do feel that we are not really feeling our whole, our roles as grandmothers, but as activists, we need just to keep on going, because this is the best thing we can do in this world that is in this threshold. We don't know what's in the other side. We may not even be there, but our children and grandchildren will be. So your words help us to keep on going. Thank you.
You really have a point, because if you have a vision of activism, a sense of what you do is meaningful, then there's every good reason to stay healthy, for example. and what I do, I mean, I'm a Jungian analyst, and the idea of individuation, of becoming who you were meant to be, is part of the work behind, through their dream, listening to the dream side, of being aware of what natural talents came into the world. They came into the world with, but they may have come into a family that did not appreciate the natural talent of their child, especially a female child. And so it isn't until she becomes aware of what is meaningful to her, does what is expected of her, and has the pleasures of being in a family, or having children, or being married, and having that work out. But then there's something inside that said, but what you were doing that was well done and collective, there's some individuality that is about who you are, what natural talent you have, but it was minimalized. Oh, someone thought you had musical ability, forget it, that's just a hobby. Art, that's just a hobby. Planting things, taking care of animals, all kinds of things are natural for people, but unless it's part of what that gender is expected to do, it's dampened down, and you don't have a chance to develop it often until you are postmenopausal. And postmenopausally, it's possible to become more yourself and develop natural talents, but you do have to overcome the criticism that you grew up with. And it really helps if you are in a circle with a sacred center, with other women who do what they do when they help deliver babies. This is delivering the new growth that's inside of the woman that can come out into the world, supported by the sisters who support you to take yourself seriously. It's not too late to get a college education. It's not too late to study something that you've been fascinated with. And your artwork, someone in your family may laugh at it, but the more you get into what it is that you want to do with yourself, the more it becomes an extension of yourself, and you have to push against the criticisms. That's what women have had to do for generations and millennia, actually, is pushing against what the patriarchy wanted and expected of women. Just bear our children. Don't get educated. Don't be an individual. Well, right now, the potential for women and humanity has a lot to do with Circle. Now, the book that I wrote called The Millionth Circle, How to Change Ourselves and the World, has to do, the Millionth Circle, it isn't just the number, the million, it's a magical number, the millionth. You keep forming circles, and if you keep forming circles and you connect with a sense that you are actually growing yourself within that circle of support, but you are adding to a kind of collective growing of circle as a movement in which within your family as well, to then, and one of the things about this wonderful thing about Zoom is that you can have a patriarchal family where you're silent around the dinner table pretty much if you're a kid, and one parent maybe dominates the dinner table. But when you hold a Zoom thing and every kid gets to talk too, things start to change. So there's something about this in between liminal time that is hard in lots of ways, but it helps something to grow, individuality to grow. Because if you are just part of a social group, but the social group doesn't meet for 2 years, then what do you do with yourself? This is a very interesting time for us all. And the question is, at any point of life, is what are we here for now? What is the point of our lives right now? How is it that even in the midst of this pandemic and things, that something might be stirring? And then as you feed that part of yourself that is stirring, it may be not evident to others, but you have a sense that there's something growing in you. You know, it's sort of like the idea of a baby is that something grows in a woman and she changes her outer side and she makes a connection with something or someone. Well, postmenopausal, that is an idea, but it doesn't show. It's like we become pregnant with a new thought or idea of what we are going to become. So it doesn't show on the outside. It may, if we step up to a position and start to speak up, but think about it, feel about it. Look at whatever it is that has inspired you to express a part of yourself. And it also may be that you need to take time off too, that you need to take time to go to where it is in nature that you love, that it may be time to take time off and read what moves you. And to, in a sense, I mean, like pregnancy requires 9 months of something growing inside before it's ready to come out. And when it's ready to come out, it needs to come out. And that's what a new creative, political, whatever you call it, idea, but something that is innate to who you are, that is growing inside of you. Will you support it to grow, and will you bring it out into the world? And if there are circles upon circles upon circles, if there are millions and millions of circles, and each circle supports the growth of the members of the circle to bring forth what is truly themselves into the world, maybe in the next 2 decades, we will have the opportunity to shift the direction that the world is going in. I am an optimist, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think, Jean, for what you've been saying and what we feel as an optimist is see, I can put my energy in being so depressed about the news. And it isn't that I'm not a realist. And I think that's the other thing we're saying. We are realists. We're realistic about what's happening in the world. And having just gone through a hurricane down here and knowing that there's going to be more, is that we're in real trouble. And my energy is put into the positive. My energy is to be with like-minded people or to help others become more like-minded, whether it's related to caring for our earth or learning how to care for one another and to remove the divisiveness. And to me, that's what Circle is about. And that's what your message has always been about, is how we can bring one another together. Marilyn has a wonderful book on activism that you'll find on our website. So, of how to be an activist. So,
Good.
In the middle
Sorry.
of the pandemic, there was so much political news that there was hardly any news that I happened to catch that we were about to send another lunar probe, and they were calling it Artemis 1, and they were going to send it from Florida to the moon. And that was amazing because they named it Artemis 1, and then it didn't work. The effort to send it off didn't work. They returned it in a sense to the factory thing. Well, the thing about Artemis 1 is it had two women, including the captain, as women who were leading this lunar probe, but then it shut down. And I was really kind of exhausted at that point, but I thought, well, really, that ought to be able to, I mean, that's important symbolically that they're going to send Artemis 1 off, but then it didn't happen. It fizzled out. And then there was another probe that went out. It's not called Artemis. It doesn't have a name, but its captain is a woman, and it's not the same women as on the first one. So something is going on in a symbolic and real way about women astronauts. So I think that's always kind of hopeful to think, amazing, you know? So then I started, I was at a sort of a low point energetically myself, but I thought when it was going to be called Artemis 1 that I should make an effort to talk about Artemis, because the book Artemis and the archetype Artemis happens to be that which is closest to any woman who has felt at any time the archetype of, like, the Girl Scout, the sister, the sense that Artemis was the firstborn of twins. So she was the older sister to Apollo. So her relationship with most men is as we are equals. We are related. We care for each other. And so I was thinking, we're right on this edge where things could go positive, and we're going to shoot off Artemis 1. And I was really, really positive about that. But then it didn't take off. But there is a probe out there already. It was sent off, and there are 2 women aboard, and the captain is a woman. So maybe after the elections and whatever, if we all survive everything, it'll come back and be a symbol of the return of an egalitarian relationship between masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
So that's an optimist. I'm telling you, I am an optimist. I have optimistic ideas.
It's great.
I wanted to add something, Jean, because we're talking about circles. I would like to see the circles, and there are so many that are out there, connecting. I think there's power in numbers. And if we could get a movement that would at least would have that, gather that power in, under some flag that we could create. Anyway, I would love to see that happen. And I'm just putting it out to plant a seed here, that if our circles could connect with other circles that connect with other circles, it would, we would have a voice, a louder voice. Thank you.
It also would help if every circle that already exists considers itself adding to the numbers of circles that will keep growing and growing and growing
Exactly.
until
Yeah.
it reaches the one that tips the scales.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And I just want to say a plug for the Parliament of the World Religions, which is in August, the 14th through the 18th, and Pat Farrell is there, is also part of the Women's Task Force. That's another thing we hope to do, and Jean will be there, and many others will be there, really to raise the issue of the power of circles and the power of connecting circles. And we don't have a mechanism right now, but energetically we can, and raising the vision, keeping that vision, and saying we're going to connect these circles, and it's going to multiply and multiply and multiply of being connected and feeling connected.
I'm working with, some of you know Patricia Lynn Riley, and she has a new book coming out as well. And she was reading from it the other day, and I was really taken by 3 paragraphs, which I can't even quote. And I thought, if women could take this pledge as a unified field, shall we say, I would be incredible, and it would work for bringing the groups together as well. And I'm going to have to find it and send it to you, because it's very exciting. And as we were talking about it the other day, there was excitement in the circle that we were in. And so anyway, I'll keep thinking. I'm working on it.
I'd like to both begin and end a discussion in which we speak from heart and soul and head with the sound of the Tibetan bowl. So. And if you have a prayer or a saying or something in words, do let them come to mind.
I'd like to offer prayer. I'm here. I just got here 3 days ago to Odessa and been in Ukraine now for months. I don't know if you can hear me because my Ukraine is
Yes.
frozen. Determination by the people of Ukraine to maintain their freedom and sovereignty. So to hear Jean's words today, it's just so uplifting and empowering and optimistic. And I send you all so much love. I feel like I've been dodging bombs and missiles from Kyiv to Kharkiv to Lviv to other. We've got truckload 20 tons worth of humanitarian aid and medical supplies and medicines coming from France to the border of Poland and then from Poland into Ukraine. And everybody told me not to go to Odessa. It's too dangerous there. But nothing could stop me from coming to be on the ocean, the Black Sea, to just kind of heal my broken heart and to maintain peace within my heart and mind and body. And it's been a blessing to be here, to be with God's children in Ukraine and to pray with them and to be with some of the most fiercest women in circle, in prayer, in shelters, sitting in circle with them to talk about their trauma and their pain and healing together. And just as we were doing a 2-hour program, the sirens went off and we all had to evacuate and go to a bomb shelter underneath the nearby school. And that was kind of a blessing in disguise because then it brought so many of the displaced people together in the bomb shelter and I got to be with them. And we were there for so long, we ended up then sharing a meal together. And it was just, they were so kind and so generous and just amazing. So I just want to send you all so much love from Ukraine, from our families here. Let's keep the prayers up for hope and for a paradigm shift that we do not go into a war this winter. It will be brutally cold and for both sides, and that the nuclear disasters will not, the potential is definitely here. May peace prevail on earth. That is our prayer. I love you all. Thank you.
Laura Sauer, it's so wonderful always to have you with us when you can. And you know that wherever you are, we are with you. So as we have so often in our sacred circles, we just go around and people will say in 1 or 2 words how this has been for them. So why don't we just do that? Everybody open your mics and just in 1 or 2 or 3 words, just how has this time in our sacred circle been for you?
I'll start. Heart expansion.
A time of gratitude.
It goes to the heart. It goes to the heart.
Use our power, our heart power for good.
Amen.
Basically the same thing, that our hearts are powerful.
What I'd like to say is what a blessing you are, Jean. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you. And I think the main idea is that this is our time to make a difference.
You've
Thank you.
given me courage as I sold my house, divorced my husband, and I'm going to go on my travel quest to I don't know where to do, I don't know what, and a little bit scared because I'm almost 70 and I'm crazy. So you gave me courage to do it. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you, Jean, for all that you do for so many people. You have no idea the ripples that you cause. And they are ripples from the heart, the vibration of the heart and how it's rippled out and rippled out and rippled out.
And can I say one thing quickly, Anne?
Sure.
You hear me? I'm seeing Leah's face, and I know what happens with Leah when she's present and how she picks up the energy. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you're there,
Put her
Leah,
on the spot.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Do
Is
it.
there anything that comes through for you energetically with this gathering?
I'm sorry, I have strep throat today. I got it from my son, so that's why I've been hiding in the background. But I just want to say I'm grateful for the life support, that every woman supports life. And when we support each other, we become this big field of life support for the earth. And it's so wonderful to weave together in this beautiful fabric of life support and to build platforms. And when we empower each other, we empower life. When we support each other, we support life. And we're all doing such beautiful, amazing things. Like Jean said, we're birthing and midwiving for each other, all these beautiful seeds of a new earth. So every time we come together, it's such a blessing, and I can feel it coming online. What an honor to be here. Thank you, Jean. I feel so grateful for the life support.
You know that Leah is our magic weaver of the web, of our website, and she does a beautiful job in having all lights be seen. So do visit that and do fill out your own bios for those who haven't, so that you can be one of the lights that are shining and illuminated on our website. And she has it so what the work that you're doing people can find out and connect to it. So if anybody's connecting circles, I think it's Leah.
We'll talk.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, anyone else who would like to speak? I see their picture? Virginia, I see your photo. Would you like to say a few words?
I'd like to say thank you for everyone. Thank you for Angela for my invitation. For me, it's a great moment to learn and stay here together for making in another world for woman. Angela me helping me e fazer um mundo melhor para todas e todos.
She wants to work to make a better world for everyone.
Valeria, I think, and then we also have Catherine.
Hi, I'm from Argentina, and I just said thank you. Really, it's very optimistic here. You, Jean, and learn this is the time to be ourselves, maybe for the first time. It's
Good
really
thought.
encouraging for us. What?
A good thought. It is time to be yourself.
It is time. Maybe the first time in our lives. And to make a difference and to go for it, whatever it is, for the first time.
Mm.
Wonderfully said. Great to have you.
Thank you.
And
Great to be here.
yeah, come back.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I'm very far away from you, but I will.
No, not by Zoom. So, and we're here every Saturday, the same link.
I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, noon Eastern time. So yeah, just show up and
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will.
Okay, great. That goes for everyone. And
Say again the time on Saturday, please.
it's always at noon Eastern time. And it's the same link. And you'll find that link also if you hopefully we'll get it out on emails. But it's always on our Facebook group of the Green Tent Circle. You'll find it there too. What a powerful, powerful circle of beautiful women who all are dedicated to making a difference. So thank you all. I'm in deep gratitude.
I want to introduce Loribanya. She is in Brazil. I invited her to be part of the Green Tent Circle. I hope we can work together and keep on growing our circles.